I did want to show this next hooping on how it lines up. So you can see right here that it lines up pretty good with this ghost, but with this one up here, it's ever so slightly off. But you can see that my crosshair is kind of parallel up here. Oh, I might have to fix that. I have to rotate it a little bit. But I wanted to just point out that you don't want to worry too much about this not matching up because, the fabric draws in as it's quilted. So this printed template is not going to totally agree with the fabric drawing in. See, the stitches are kind of drawn in. So don't let that worry you too much. So you want to really try to keep your design in line with the seam lines of the quilt. So like I said, this one, I don't know, it looks pretty straight. I'm looking through the camera. Yeah, I'm going to just leave it. It looks good enough, and we'll just go with that. So, but again, you don't have to be perfect because they're just nested. You don't have to match anything up or anything. You just do the best you can, and it still looks great. So I'm working on the very edge of the quilt top, and what I did, since these designs are nested, you really have to make sure that you put on, another complete row or a half a row or what have you, half of your design when you get to the edges, because you have to fill in the nested parts. Let me show you on here. So this is a ghost, and this is actually the top of my design. I just put that TP there to show for when I have to flip it, then I can still call this my top, even though it's flipped. It just keeps me, alert as to which parts I'm working on. So the last full design was, let me see, I have to not look through the camera, say right here. Okay, so that was my last full design. And then you can see I have like a half of a design that I have to fill in up here. And on my last and the end prior to this, I had to do the same thing, and but I was working with a different half because, of course, when you flip your quilt, you're flipping the design. So on this particular end, I'm stitching. Let's see if I could see through the camera. So I lined that up here with the ghost. So I'm stitching out a little more than half of the design. And that's okay because I actually cut the design into 2/3. So I cut the design here in my digitizing software. You can kind of see the line. These are travel stitches on the batting. And I kind of stitched up in here. I won't need this, but it's better to have more than less. I also have a file of this where I cut it completely in half. And, I think my other end, I didn't need 2/3. I just needed a half. But at any rate, I'm calling this the top 2/3, even though it looks like it's on the bottom. for the sake of my design and my template, it's the top of this template or design or whatever. So, and when I digitized it, you can see that I'm only stitching the dark part. The yellow part I'm not even stitching. The yellow part is going to be my last. Let me go back to the top. Okay, so I actually have 3 objects. My crosshair, which is, I'm looking through the camera, my crosshair, and then my design, the bottom half, and then the third one is the top half that I'm not going to stitch. And so on this particular version, so I called this like M1 2/3 top swirl. You know, 23 instead of 2/3 because you only get 8 characters. But the design is still going to, if I go to the design, I still have this basting stitch here to let it start here because this is just a single run, so I still have to have it start here on this particular one. On the other end, I got luckier. I didn't have to do that, so it was quicker. Because on this side of the design, there's not any single runs. There's one here, but I think I was able to cut it off. But at any rate, so it still starts here, and then you bury this long basting stitch, and it ends here, and then it jumps here, so you'll still have a long tail. So that's how I'm doing it, and it's working out really great. When I come to the next design, I started here in the center and I went left. So I'm going to just keep going left. But when I do go left here, I'm not going to spray any more starch on this. You could see it's just a little bubbly. And I think I also mentioned that if I had my scrap piece of fabric stitched on here instead of stitching this down to the batting, I wouldn't have had to worry about ironing it as I go now, because I could just smooth it the way I've been smoothing everything. But since it's tacked down, I have like a little bubble here, so that goes away because I originally starched the fabric before I cut it. And like I was saying, I think I mentioned earlier, do not spray it with the sizing again, or the starch or the sizing. I was using sizing because it discolored it. It kind of burnt it. It was too much sizing. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my ironing pad underneath. So and I do have my iron on steam only because I am trying to this ended here. So I'm going right here. You know, I am trying to shrink it up just a little bit. So I have it on steam, but I'm not going to squirt it with steam or anything. I just have the iron on steam. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm not going to press back and forth. I'm just going to press down. And I've been noticing what's been working is to go at an angle to the border. And I'm trying to stay away from the stitching. So I have it on, for this iron, it's not, this is only like, I think it's 1700 on the wattage or what have you for this iron. So as you can see, it just flattened it right out. And here's the other thing I've noticed. There's a little bit of a bubble there. I'm just going to hit that. This will all be fine once it's washed and everything. This has already been stitched. So there it is. And I'll just let that cool just for a minute. Like I said, I have Formica under here, so I'm not worried about it. And I'll just pull that out. And it's nice because since I left the whole design intact, basically I can still use the same template. Now on my template, I moved my tape down so that it's right here and here, still on the bottom. But because I don't want the tape to be on the batting, it's just a waste. So to line it up then, again, I do the same thing I've always done. Here's my previous design, and I'll try to not shake the camera. I don't know if you can see it, but so here's my previous design. Now it's not the top of the design anymore. It's only halfway there. This and this match up. And then I can kind of like just maybe slide this over, and I'm looking through the camera, so it's kind of hard for me to see. So there's nothing for this to line up on the side because this is the design. This isn't the ghost. Here's a ghost here, but I'm not lining anything up there. But down here, this one, I can line up with this ghost. So as I slide it over, there we go. So then that's how I would line it up. And again, you know, I'm looking at this line and this seam line to make sure that they're parallel. And I may have to put the camera down to do this because I can't really look through the camera. But that's what I'm doing. I'm lining those. I'm just kind of making it somewhat parallel. And like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect because it's very forgiving. And so I have tape there, and then I'll just brush out this way, and there it is, it's on. And since this is accordion folded, it makes it easy. Even though it's heavy, camera's in my way. It's still easy to accordion fold it. And then the same thing on the hoop template. I put the tape down here, like here, from here to here, the lower, instead of up here, instead of on these sides, and this is still at the bottom. So, and I redrew my cross here. It turned out with these Sharpie pens on this vinyl, if you just scrape it with your fingernail, you can get the excess to come off. That's why it is coming off, but it's fine. So I redrew it in, so my lines are better now. So I'll line that up. Press it down. Take my top hoop, and I did the same thing on here. One thing I don't know if I mentioned before, when I'm working on the border, on the edge, because this batting is here, I just didn't want my sticky tape on here to stick to the batting. On my other edge of the quilt, this edge of the hoop had no fabric at all. So I had to cover it with tape because the stickiness of it was hitting the arm of the machine and it wasn't allowing me to slide the hoop in. The stickiness was sticking to the arm. So I just decided to put it on again, even though it's probably a waste of time because I could have just let the batting mess it up. It's fine. The other thing, let me go ahead and line this up. And I'm still, just so you know, I'm still lining up the little marks here with this crosshair. And then this mark, the vertical ones with the crosshair. Just so that, you know, this isn't a, what do they call it? I forget, it's the Janome hoop that, it's got that hard acrylic template in the center. This is not that, but it's pretty darn close because I folded up the sides. So my tape is down here now and just right here, basically. The other thing I noticed is I've probably been making my hoop too tight throughout this whole quilt. I really don't need it that tight, and I noticed that because when you do get on the ends and you have less layers on the edges, obviously your hoop is looser and it's so much easier to hoop, right? But then you worry that, oh, I should tighten it. Well, guess what? I didn't really have to tighten it, and it's hooping so much easier now. So from now on, I'm going to keep the hoop pretty open. Let me get a ruler. Okay, so I take that back. This one, this hooping that I'm doing on the edge, I did tighten the screw by about maybe one turn because it was so loose. I think I did. Don't quote me. But it measures a 1/2 inch now. So I don't know if you can see that. It's about a 1/2 inch. I believe when I'm hooping all 3 layers, you know, in the interior of the quilt, I believe it's more like 5/8, I think. No, maybe not. Because this, normally this didn't have all this play, so maybe I didn't tighten it. So don't quote me. Don't quote me. But the point being, I really don't have to be hooping this as tight as I thought. It's just a loose quilting design. It's not going to move around. So I don't have to struggle anymore. So I'll go ahead and I'll put this hoop in from underneath here. Just lift this up and lift up. The hoop's not going to really go anywhere, you know. So I'll just feel and push around and push over here. Kind of feel that it's all even. And I've been going back and forth on, you know, which side to do first and so on. And I still do like putting this edge in first, but I still have to kind of hold it. Let me push on this. And give this a little bit of slack. And I'll push the left one down, and then the right one. And at this point, it is kind of interesting, since I'm on the edge, if I hold my arm down and just give this a little bit of a tug, it does seem to work well with straightening this and smoothing this. And then at that point, I can push this far corner, the corner that's farthest from the dial, because this one is always the hardest one to get in, and then work my way around. And that just went in so easy, and it's still secure. And then I can recess it. It's very secure. So I'm thinking that maybe what I should be doing is not taping this top, because remember I covered up the double-sided tape here. So maybe I should hoop it like that. I don't know. So that's recessed. So everything is recessed. So now I can take this off. I'll take it off from up here. There's no tape up there. Push my finger on the fabric so I don't pull the fabric up. And there you go. And now you can tell what I did want to show you on the machine is you can tell that my last design is still pulled up because it says paused. It'll either say paused or completed. It says paused because I stopped it before it finished making these stitches. It's just easier to pull it out then, even though these are only like 2 stitches. You know, and we want to pull up the design again, because if I moved it or jogged it with these buttons, we don't want to use the same design. So I know that this is my previous design. I can also tell by the way the arms are on the embroidery machine. You know, they're not in the center. So I'll just go open, RSC, EMBF. And this is easy to find because it's yellow and black, but this is M1 2/3 top swirl. That's how I named it. Even though the design is on the bottom, as far as my design template goes, it says TP in this area here. So I already saved it to the RCS with my, you know, colors and my needles assigned, and it brought them back correctly. And the reason why I made this one number 1, even though it's the yellow that's not going to stitch, I thought if I would have made it number 2, then this one might not have stayed red, you know, red stop. But since I made it number 1 and it's a different color, my red stop stayed. Because, you know, I wanted to make sure it stopped after it stitched my design that I wanted to stitch, my part of the design. So that's kind of that, all that preparation and everything, and it seems to be going quite well. So, and it's so easy now to hoop it, right? Because it's on the edge. Super easy. So I'll just slide my table up close. Since I'm going to the far left, I have some excess that I have to bring up. I would put it on my stool here, but the camera's in the way. So, and I'm just going to push everything close, but I want to be careful because I don't want to damage this. And that's why I have a cushion here, because I don't want my table to damage the arm. So, and I'm going to just push this up. I'm pushing on my fabric, getting it started. Now I am going to drape this over. So I'll get it started. And once it's started, I'll go ahead, let me see if I can get a good view of this, and I'll grab some of the accordion fold, lift up, and give some fabric to the machine there, and bring up my sides, my back, caught some of it under the hoop. As soon as you get it started, you want to make sure you address the back and the sides. And then I'll push it in, locks in. It's real easy this time. And I'll pull my table back, create my little channel or canal. And there is no weight on that hoop whatsoever because most of it's here on the table. And I have my stool here that I can use if I want, or I can just drape this over the table, and that prevents the fabric from sliding or moving as well. So that channel is fine. It just takes care of any excess weight. And this side is not that, long because I'm going to the left with my design. So, and I really haven't even been worried too much about center and rotation for this row because it's all so perfect. The hoop goes in so easy. I just think I've been making it too hard on myself. But of course I can still check for center. So to check for center right away as I grab my shelf liner and grab the wheel, turn it to the left till this is halfway down, and then take the needle down. And I'm like so close, but I guess I can go back maybe 5 and to the right 5. And of course, you hit that, needle bar's out of alignment, so you hit OK right here, and you'll watch the take up lever go back, and then I can go, what did I say I was going to go? Back 5. And to the right 5. And honestly, that's just nitpicking because you're not even going to notice with these designs. You don't have to be perfect. So that's right on. And on my last design, I didn't even check for rotation because I'm like, this little bit that I have to stitch, who cares, But if I wanted to, I'd hit the fast forward button to fast forward to the first stitch of the crosshair. And of course I get that warning because I dialed the needle down. And then I'll hit the fast forward button again. And that's the top, and I can snap it down. And I come to the front of the machine. And I mean, I could tell already it's not to the left or the right. It's not rotated at all. I don't even have to fast forward through this. It's perfectly on. So, and I think the reason why I'm on so perfectly is because I'm not struggling with making my hoops so tight. It just went in fine. I was off a little bit on my center, but if I were, in the middle of the quilt and everything, I would still check for rotation. That's my pet peeve. If you learn anything from me at all, it's that you have to check for rotation. That's my thing. So anyway, so here we are, and I've got a little bit of thread. I'm gonna peel this off. Got it only in 3 spots. And let's see, I'm on number 2. I already fast forwarded to number 2, our second object, so it's ready to stitch. So I'm just going to hit start. So it's still doing that basting stitch. So it just made it almost, that's like the halfway point up here at the top of this curl. That's why I had to go with a 2/3. I had to cut it off at a 2/3 because I wanted it to go past the border. So I just, you know, yeah, I'm going over, but at least it's not the whole design that I'm stitching out. And you can see how I'm traveling. So that's how you do it. So that all has to be digitized if you want to cut it like I did. You know, I did it in my Embird embroidery software. And Embird just makes it so easy. Everything in Embird is exact placement, everything. Even my travel stitches are specific stitch length, and you know, because I didn't want them to be regular connecting stitches that are real tiny. I was able to make them longer and so on. It's just an amazing software that doesn't get enough recognition. So now it's going to jump, and then I stop it. If I didn't have the camera, I would have stopped it before it even made that second stitch, just to make life easier. And then so there you go. So then to take it out, I'll use my stool here. Oops. Open that up. Grab my accordions, lift it up, and I'm pushing the table closer. And now I'm going to just accordion fold it, undo it, okay. Dump it on there. And this is my favorite part. I just pull this back, spin it around, and I just sit on my couch to bury my threads. And I've done that before in the other videos, so I won't bore you with that, but so that's how I do it on the end.